All right, we're about to tackle, well, this is probably the biggest story ever told, right? The entire 4.5 billion year biography of our planet. Seriously, how do we go from just a cloud of dust and pure chaos to, well, this, the world we're all living in right now? Let's dive in.
Okay, to really get a grip on a timeline this huge, let's bring it right home. I want you to think about the exact spot where you are right now. No, really, the ground, directly under your feet. What do you think it was like a million years ago? Or heck, a billion years ago? I can pretty much guarantee you the answer is way more extreme than anything you could possibly imagine.
Believe it or not, that exact spot has existed in two states that are just unbelievable. For millions and millions of years, it was a boiling ocean of molten rock. We're talking hotter than the surface of the sun. And then, for millions of other years, it was buried under miles, literally miles of solid ice. Both of those are true for the ground you're on right now. So how on earth did we get from that to here?
Okay, our story has to start at the very beginning, right? Let's rewind the clock all the way back and see how a violent, chaotic cloud of interstellar dust and gas was somehow forged into our home.
You know, this whole chain reaction, it actually started with an ending. An ancient star dies in this massive explosion, a supernova, and the shockwave from that explosion, it slams into a nearby cloud of dust and gas, compressing it. Inside that compressed cloud, radioactive elements start to clump together, creating a gravitational core. This little core starts pulling in more and more hydrogen and helium until the pressure becomes so absolutely immense, it just ignites. And boom, just like that, our sun is born.
So, in this brand new, super chaotic solar system, it wasn't just our sun. There were dozens of small planets forming, like cosmic bumper cars. Our Earth was one of them, but, and this is a big but, it wasn't alone in its orbit. There was another planet, about the size of Mars, which scientists now call Theia, and it was on a direct collision course with us.
And the impact, it was absolutely cataclysmic. It blasted a massive cloud of debris into orbit all around the now molten Earth. But here's the amazing part. Over thousands of years, gravity started doing its thing, pulling all these millions of rock fragments together, kind of sculpting them into a sphere. So this wasn't the end of the world, it was actually the birth of our moon.
So here we are. We've got a molten planet with a brand new moon. But the story doesn't stop there, of course. This rock is about to transform into a water world. You know, that famous blue marble in the blackness of space? And it's in those waters that the very first faint spark of life is going to appear.
So, a big question is, where did all of Earth's oceans come from? You might think they welled up from inside the planet, but nope, they were actually delivered from space. For millions of years, our young planet was just bombarded by asteroids, and these asteroids were carrying some seriously precious cargo: frozen water, salt, and all the essential minerals needed for life.
And as the planet finally started to cool down and the oceans got deeper, something truly incredible happened. Way down on the ocean floor, near these superheated volcanic vents just spewing chemicals from the Earth's core, the first simple, microscopic organisms emerged. Life had officially begun.
Okay, now we're entering a really tumultuous era in our planet's history. This is an age of absolute extremes, and what's wild is that it's driven by the smallest of creatures and the largest of geological forces.
So for billions of years, life stayed pretty simple. But then one type of microbe evolved this revolutionary new trick: photosynthesis. It figured out how to consume minerals and sunlight for energy, and in the process, it released a waste product that would change everything. That waste was oxygen.
And this great oxidation event, as it's called, had these incredible consequences. First, this gas, which was actually toxic to most life at the time, filled the seas and the sky, creating our very first real atmosphere. But it also did something else. It reacted with all the iron in the water and on land, and it literally caused the entire planet to rust. The ground literally turned a deep red.
But this new oxygen-rich atmosphere, it was incredibly unstable, and it triggered a runaway climate catastrophe. Temperatures just plummeted, and the planet was plunged into a deep, deep freeze. Glaciers started spreading from the poles, and they didn't stop until they covered the entire globe in a sheet of white. They call this period Snowball Earth. But the planet's inner fire, it fought back. Volcanoes literally punched through the ice, pumping tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, this greenhouse gas started to melt the ice, but it also created intense acid rain, which then pulled the CO2 back out of the sky, causing the planet to cool and freeze all over again. Earth was caught in this incredibly violent cycle for millions and millions of years.
So after all that chaos, emerging from this crazy cycle of fire and ice, a more stable world finally took shape. And this new stability, it allowed life to just explode in diversity and size, which led to, well, the undisputed kings of the ancient world, the dinosaurs.
So as the oxygen levels in the atmosphere finally stabilized, something crucial formed high above the surface, the ozone layer. Think of it like a planetary sunscreen. This shield blocked the sun's deadly radiation, and that allowed life to finally leave the safety of the oceans and crawl onto land. First it was just mosses, but then giant forests that covered the continents.
And the creatures that evolved to dominate this new green world, they were unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. The dinosaurs. It is so hard to wrap your head around this, but they ruled this planet for nearly 300 million years. Let me put that in perspective for you. Our own species, Homo sapiens, has only been around for about 300,000 years. It's not even close.
Okay, now we arrive at what is easily the most dramatic event in the last quarter of a billion years. A sudden, violent cataclysm from space that would end one era in a flash of fire and, totally unexpectedly, pave the way for our own.
The agent of this destruction? It was an asteroid of almost unimaginable power. We're talking about a rock larger than Mount Everest, traveling more than 20 times the speed of a rifle bullet, and it slammed right into what is now the Gulf of Mexico.
The scale of the devastation is it's hard to even comprehend. The impact released the energy of 100 million atomic bombs all exploding at once. It incinerated everything for thousands of miles and triggered global earthquakes, massive tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions all over the planet.
The sky was blackened by dust and soot for years. The sun was blocked out, killing the plants and starving the great dinosaurs into extinction. It was, for all intents and purposes, the end of their world. But it wasn't the end of all life. Hiding in burrows deep underground, our tiny ancestors, these small shrew-like mammals, they somehow managed to survive the apocalypse.
So, what happens next? With the giants gone, our small mammalian ancestors inherited a completely empty world. They came out from their burrows, they moved into the trees, eventually evolving into the first primates. And as the climate continued to change, some of them learned to walk on 2 feet. And this was huge because it freed up their hands. This was the key innovation, the thing that led to tools, to fire, to language, and, well, eventually to the civilizations that we know today.
And that brings us right up to the present day. We've just journeyed through 4.5 billion years of planetary history just to arrive at our own, incredibly brief moment on the timeline. And it all leads to a final, pretty critical thought.
Think about it. We've just witnessed Earth's incredible story. A story of violent creation, extreme change, and just stunning resilience. It took 4.5 billion years of fire and ice and cataclysms and evolution to create the world we all inhabit. And now, in just a couple of centuries, our species is changing it faster than any force we've seen in that entire history. So the question this whole story leaves us with is, what will our chapter in this epic story look like?